We are live, and we are live on YouTube and Twitter this time. And we just created a LinkedIn page for Fresh Labs. So if you're able to find it, I think we'll share the link in the YouTube description later. But please join there. And this time we couldn't go live on the Fresh Labs on LinkedIn page, but we'll try to go live next time once we have the live streaming enabled. But let me introduce myself. My name is Elisha Terada. I'm the Technical Innovation Director at Fresh Consulting. And we also have a co host, Johnny Rodriguez. He is the Strategic Innovation Director at Fresh Consulting. And Johnny, I heard that you were speaking at an event yesterday. Tell us about it.
Yes, I was. And we might have people join later from this. But yeah, I had the opportunity to represent Fresh and Fresh Labs over in Houston, Texas. So I'm based out of Austin, Texas, our Texas office. And there was an opportunity there in Houston at this location called the Ion, which is this awesome innovation center. It's beautiful. It's like this beautifully renovated mix of industrial and old with the modern new tech kind of environment. So I got to speak on practical applications, business applications for AR, VR, and the metaverse. So it was cool to kind of present there and meet a lot of the people from the Houston area that have businesses that might be related or completely unrelated, and talk about current state, future state of those technologies, practical ways to leverage those technologies, as well as entry points. So we will be sharing the link later, but it was a cool opportunity. So we'll probably do some more similar things. Lash and I will probably do more kind of live events like that, speaking opportunities in the future. But yeah, that's kind of it was definitely a good event, good turnout, good back and forth Q&A at the end. So yeah, overall success.
That's cool. So, for those people who want to watch the recorded version or snippets version, I think we're going to upload the video on probably on the Fresh Consulting YouTube channel, as well as I think we might upload a few segments for the Fresh Labs YouTube channel. And if you follow us on LinkedIn, Johnny and myself, or you could also follow the new channel that we just created for Fresh Labs. If you search Fresh Labs LinkedIn, oh yeah, we have the URL down there. We'll be posting all the talks that Johnny did. So yeah, we're all excited to hear about the cool practical use cases. And yeah, I think we'll be excited to join more in-person events and not just talking to you guys online, but we'll be happy to show up and we'll fly down to your city if needed. So that's really exciting, Johnny. Oh,
Yeah, it was fun.
cool. Let's get started on our live show. And today we're going to cover word of the day and lightning news, where we cover a lot of news rapidly. And we're going to talk about US congressional bill on crypto that just became the hot topic in last 2 days. And we're also going to talk about some highlight of WWDC that just happened. And we are going to specifically focus on the AR portion of it. And lastly, we're going to close with the question of the day. So let's get started with the word of the day. And the word is mixed reality. And this is something we touched on last time when we explained the term extended reality. And Johnny, I think you did really good job with this slide that you created for us. Could you do a little bit of highlight on how you describe the mixed reality?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And it definitely can be a confusing word, because we hear XR, we hear MR, AR, VR, all of these different terminologies. We ended up actually building a microsite at Fresh to talk about this particular like definition difference, examples, stats, things like that. But essentially, mixed reality brings together the real world and the digital world, and you can kind of manipulate both that physical and virtual items and environments. So that still seems pretty vague. So this graphic does help quite a lot. So when we talk about XR, we talk about things like augmented reality, where you're adding a layer over the real world, or virtual reality, where it's completely immersive. What we don't have on here are things like smart glasses. Um, maybe it's you know um, heads up displays. It might be audio focused extended reality with something that you're wearing. So there's quite a lot of categories under that would fall under XR. But mixed reality is more of like the extent at which something is either real or the extent at which something is virtual. So it's a spectrum. So it's more of like, to what extent is this one or the other? What you hear a lot right now is that there are companies like, there's rumors that Apple will be launching and releasing a MR headset, a mixed reality headset. The reason you're not seeing it called augmented reality headset or virtual reality headset or XR headset is because the rumor is that this is a mixed reality, meaning you can close the lens over the front and become virtual and do the virtual reality that you'd expect from something like the Meta Quest. And then you can also take off that cover and then show something and have an experience similar to augmented reality, where you can see the real world. And so, because there's this layer of doing both, they call that mixed reality. So it really is more of a spectrum than anything else. Um, it can still be that blend of physical and digital, but it's just kind of, to what extent is it involving the real world or kind of the virtual world. That's my best stab at that. I don't know if you would add or change or
Yeah. Would you
anything like
describe
that.
the Project Cambria where Mark Zuckerberg kind of showed the preview of it? That you would describe as a mixed reality headset, correct?
It's tricky. So yes, that's kind of the tricky thing. So I would call that, as far as what we've seen, right? Because there's still not a lot of details. I would say that's a VR headset that has elements of pass through AR is what they call that. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to turn on the cameras and now you can see the real world. They do that today in the Quest 2. They do that in the Quest 1. The difference is, with the rumors of Project Cambria and the videos that Mark Zuckerberg shown, we're seeing color for the first time. We're seeing it actually feel realistic, and it's not blurry or grainy, and it's not black and white. And so we're going to see to what extent is it doing augmented reality, and if that becomes something that you can turn on and off, maybe it's not removing the lens or not, it's just activating the cameras and showing your room, then theoretically yes, we can call that a mixed reality headset. So it's yet to be established officially, but I would say Quest 1, Quest 2, Oculus Quest, Oculus Rift, all were VR, and we're starting to get into this little realm of like, oh, can we show the real world, and can we augment on top of things? And then, so that's, again, we're going to see to what extent on the spectrum they're going into the AR.
Cool. I think maybe we should create a graphic next time that puts, let's say, Project Cambria on. It's mostly VR, but has like a little bit of like AR, through the pass through where they could maybe say it's partially AR. Maybe we can put like the rumored Apple, headset to be like maybe it's closer to
Definitely.
AR or right in the middle. That might really help explain what
Yep.
spectrum are these headsets falling under. So yeah, I think that's a really great explanation. I also liked when you explained the extended reality. It could be more than just the visual aspect, right? There is the smell sense and auditory sense, and there is more reality that can be extended into.
Mm-hmm.
So you really mix the reality that describes at this point the visual aspect of it and the spectrum
100%.
where you sit.
Yes.
That's a really good explanation. Cool. So we're moving into the lightning news segment. We are just going to touch on some of the latest news that just happened in over the last week. So you guys are caught up to date, but we won't necessarily go too deep into each one. Gucci Town. So this is interesting because I think Gucci is one of the brand that just like, keeps going, right? They have the NFT Gucci bag that had some interesting news for how much the virtual bag sold for. That was more than the real bag
Yeah.
that they sell. But now they have Gucci Town in Roblox, and I can see that they're starting to target the Gen Z audience there. And I put some screenshots over on the right top and then the right bottom where it kind of shows the expanded view on what it looks like. Right now, you're just looking at the top down view of the entire town where you have buildings, and in middle there's like a creative center, is what they call it. And then there is like a building so you can visit into. I think they have like a total of 5 that I see in this screenshot. But if you're interested, give it a visit. And related, Forever 21 and Burby launch in store, online, and in Metaverse. So you can't just
Whoa,
now you have to go store and the online store and then gotta go on the Metaverse because you gotta cover
interesting.
a new storefront, right? And yeah, just like what we saw with the Roblox with the Gucci, they're definitely targeting the Gen Z generation, and I thought that was interesting. So maybe yeah, if you know somebody who's interested, it might be interesting to check it out. And the next one, Mark Zuckerberg shows vision for user-created metaverse with Krita. Is that how I say, Johnny?
Crata, yeah, Crata
Krita
tools.
tools.
Yeah, so I'll cover this one. Yeah, so actually today, this morning, I woke up this morning and saw something on the news around this where, just to give some history, last summer, Meta bought Unity 2 Games, which is a United Kingdom based company that made this user generated content tool that at the time was called Crata. So it's a user generated content tool. Um, so obviously Meta's beefed that up in the last year, and they officially launched that today, and it's a cloud streamed experience. And so it's part of Facebook gaming and things like that. So there's actually a video of him playing with some of the actual creators of this, people that kind of worked on it. It's showing that it's making games more accessible, and they're making like game development a lot easier. Right, we're seeing more and more of this kind of things. So, so yeah, he jumps into um, let's see here. Oh, I think we lost the screen. There we go. And yeah, he kind of jumped in and kind of showed that they did like a Meta's headquartered campus courtyard, and they had some mini games and amusement park attractions and things like that. And he showed how easy it was to go and like create that. And he like one of the quotes that I like from there. There's actually a few quotes that I want to mention here. One is one of the things that I really love about this idea of being able to design a space or design a game uh, from inside the space or game. So like the idea of like you're in the game and you're building another game, right? We see that with Horizon Worlds. You get a sense of that like with Minecraft is a game where you're building worlds, right? And so this is one of those games that kind of helps with that. But as it relates to the metaverse, right? It's like, okay, well, what is this and how does this fit with everything? Well, historically, if you wanted to have something like this run in this kind of high quality and 3D environment, it was really hard to do in the browser or in your phone. And they've been able to add a lot of cloud infrastructure to be able to send that through the network across the network and then render that through the cloud onto devices now and browser and computer and things like that. So it's a big deal. You know, he says it's the it's like we think about the metaverse. People often think, oh, it's VR, and like nobody has VR, so why is the metaverse isn't here? I hear that all the time. What he's
Mhm.
saying is the metaverse can be in 2D, it can be in 3D, and they often people think the metaverse is a 3D experience with virtual and augmented. But Crata is showing that you can build and enjoy these kinds of experiences easily inside of a 2D environment.
Wow, that's really nice. Yeah, and I know people do argue about what is metaverse, and I think there are people with a large influence do say like it's a 3D environment and explain this way. So yeah, it's refreshing to hear from someone else who talks about it as it could be 2D, could be browser, it doesn't have to
Yeah,
be VR. Yeah.
yeah.
Let's move on to the next news
I think I
as
can't
well.
see the full
Oh,
screen on
let
it. Let's see
me
here.
show. Yep.
Yeah, this is some news that came from Microsoft today. So as I think about HoloLens, I remember that first being announced. I remember seeing Alex Kipman on the stage. He's kind of like the father of the HoloLens. He's a technical fellow at Microsoft, and he's led the augmented reality headset project. And they basically announced today that he's stepping down. Um, so they did that in an email, I guess, on yesterday that they sent over to the Wall Street Journal, and they're basically like, "Hey, we've decided it's the right time for him to leave the company and pursue other opportunities." So we don't know a lot of. We're not going to speculate on what happened or whatever, but I think as it relates to the Hololens, there's definitely a question as to will the project continue? Was there not enough focus, or will there be a new focus? Are they bringing in something new? Is he starting something different? Like, so there's a lot of different interesting perspectives on that, but I guess we'll see what happens. But it is big news for augmented reality, considering that he's kind of been the face of that augmented reality uh, Hololens headset. So we'll have
Yeah,
to see what comes from that.
I'll be excited to see if Microsoft gets back into the consumer AR VR space because HoloLens basically they're stuck with the commercial use case only, basically, with the really high price tag. And yeah, if he leaves and do something cool and it's consumer facing that we can play with, I'll be excited.
Did you see any of the event that Google did a few weeks ago where they talked about some of the future prototype of AR and things like that?
Yeah, with the glass and things like that, where you
Yeah.
translates. Yeah, that was really cool.
So I'm hoping that that is a hint towards more of that consumer headset that you're talking about, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
I love to see that. Great. So, Johnny, this came 2 days ago, or I would say, depending on that time zone, it might be yesterday. Bipartisan crypto bill was introduced on June 7. And this is interesting. And to be clear, this is a draft for the bill. So they're going to take time and refining what it means, what's the content, and lobbyists gonna, argue and try to change things up. And probably not going to happen anytime soon, most likely in next year. But if you had a chance to read the bill, and I didn't really go through the entire bill because it's a 67 page and mostly I read a
That's a
summary
lot.
of it. Yeah, mostly I read summary of it on, Times and Wall Street Journal. A lot of people on the Twitter does pretty great job creating a thread explaining, all these little points and highlight. But I wanted to bring this up because it's a interesting let me switch to the slide. Technical difficulties, all right? And so the two Senate, and this is something I am also catching up a lot as I'm reading more and more into these bills and what's happening in the legal world. And there are basically two big names, Miss Loomis and Gilbrand. And since this is a bipartisan, I think that's where the significant to this bill is. Like it's the two coming together to form something that both can agree, right? So more likely this is going to have interesting impact in the crypto industry, especially in US. And I wanted to highlight few interesting pieces and then go a little bit deeper as we go through because it's a lot of content. It touches on a lot of things and I don't know if everyone would be interested in all the things that's mentioned. The first part, I think this is most relevant to us as a consumer. With the bill proposed, buying goods or service under $200 with crypto no longer necessitates filing a report to the IRS. So, Johnny, if you remember how things used to run, we used to have to keep track of every exchange that we do on the crypto, right? Like, okay, I pay for the crypto. Let's say I'm using the Coinbase to buy crypto and convert from the US dollar to the crypto of, let's say, BTC or Ethereum. And then I'm going to transfer to MetaMask so I can spend it or convert it into yet another coin because let's say I want to purchase something on OpenSea, right? And if I want Polygon, okay, now I need to like convert these currency from this to that. And then maybe I purchase the asset and now I have NFT. And then if I want to sell the NFT at a higher price or lower price, that becomes another transaction. And then in the end, I might roll everything back to the Coinbase and withdraw it as my revenue or profit. Or maybe it's a loss that I take on it. All that transaction that I just described has to be tracked all the way through. And at the end of the year, if you live in the United States, you have to report that as tax. And one of the blog posts I wrote on Fresh Consulting, which I encourage you to read next year when you file a tax, I try different tax reporting software where I am able to connect to Coinbase and MetaMask and all these tools that I've used to do all the transaction, and it will pull all the transactional records which I think is a cool part, right? Because blockchain, you can actually track all the transactions publicly. So all these tools can actually access all these data. And then they will give me a report and tell me, hey, you made these transactions exactly. And in the end, you came out with net loss or net profit. And then I was able to download it as the tax form to the IRS. And then I sent that over to my accountant. And then my accountant processed as part of the tax documents that we compiled together. What's interesting about this is anything under $200, you don't have to worry about it anymore. So if I have my wallet, I think like a Coinbase wallet or whatever wallet on my phone, and I want to use that at a coffee shop, and bing, it costs like 0.001 Ethereum to buy the coffee. It used to be something you have to report it. Now you don't have to. And I think this has the ramification where the bill is trying to encourage the use of cryptocurrency. The bill is trying to lax on, reporting duties. It's similar to how like freelancers or artists, when they do like a one-time service that's under, this amount of US dollars, then you don't really have to report it. I think it was like $500 or something, where it doesn't it lowers the barriers to the entry. It encourages more little activities, and it does not detract you from adopting crypto as part of your daily life. That means hopefully more innovation opportunities for tech companies to adopt these things. And I talked a lot, but Johnny, do you have any reaction up to this point about this?
Yeah, it's super interesting. Yeah, it makes me more optimistic for things under the $200 range. I mean, I definitely have a lot of questions. I know this is a draft bill, so we'll get more details later, but I definitely have questions around like, man, gas fees sometimes are $300 or something, right? Like, so like if I'm buying a $10 NFT that's Ethereum based and the gas fees are $300, am I paying for that now for the IRS because of gas fees? Has that been cleared up?
That's a good question. I actually don't know what it means for the cost of purchasing it. Yeah,
Mm,
that's a really interesting. I wonder if part of the solution that a lot of tech companies would have to come up with for the wallet is something maybe similar to what Robinhood did, where yes, you buy cryptocurrency, like let's say you buy BTC. Technically, you actually don't own it. And Robinhood made that almost like innovative feature that they can use to sell to the new generation of investors, where you don't have to own the entire stock. You don't have to actually own your crypto. It's all managed by the Robinhood. So I don't know if you heard of owning 1/8 of like stock like Tesla, because Tesla stock is expensive. But I want to own a piece of Tesla. So instead of owning one stock of Tesla, I can own 1/8. So partial ownership of
mm,
Tesla as a stock. So if you manage your own crypto in your wallet, right, where if you lose it, it's your problem. And I think we kind of lightly talked about that in last uh, live show, or maybe last two live shows. And the question is, do you want someone else to manage your crypto wallet, or do you want to manage your own crypto wallet and be the boss of your own crypto? And I think for gas fees to not incur, I think someone else might need to own. So, for example, Robinhood might need to own, or Coinbase might need to own our crypto. So we technically don't own it in our wallet. They own it. It says that we are the owner of it, right? In their system. And they would essentially have to create some kind of transaction system where only within their system they say, okay, we'll say Elijah spent Ethereum, or like a little bit of Ethereum, but it's not really exchanging like between like different parties. Like it's really virtually happening within. So it's kind of like a bank credit card. Like I spend money on credit card, and it's really the bank that's holding all money, right, is paying on behalf of me. And I wonder we need that kind of system to reduce or eliminate, virtually eliminate the gas fee. But yeah, if you're buying on OpenSea, most likely you need to spend that gas fee, right? But for the everyday transaction, there may be a system developed to basically virtually remove all the layer. Or they might have to encourage not the use of Ethereum, but some of those new blockchains, they tout like how cheap the gas fee is, where you're virtually paying like 25 cents per transaction or something like that.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, let's jump on to the next version, and we can always come back to this goods and service. So stablecoin. The bill calls for stablecoin issuers to prove that they're backed by US dollars and to be able to reimburse their users in full at any given time. And maybe we haven't really talked about stablecoin in Fresh Labs live show. And I would say I'm not like the expert in explaining all these things, but basically the idea is that you don't want the volatility of the cryptocurrency. You want it to be pegged to the US dollar, and that's why it's called stable coin. And you want to be able to invest in things with some stableness in mind, right? Because it's backed by US dollar. It's not just random, Ponzi scheme, I guess you could say, right? I could issue like 10 million coins and everyone buys at 10 cents and like there's no substance behind. So when the problem happens, well, there's no money to back it up and stabilize. And, I think you see US governments like sometimes coming in and, print out more money sometimes to try to stabilize the economy or try to encourage spending more money or issuing the money to like help, when needed. Basically, stable coin needs to have more stability. And I think this is the regulation that they're trying to put in and say, hey, if you're creating stable coin, it better be proven to be stable. You can't just call anything stable coin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because people can just put the label on it. It's like saying, "This is whole wheat," and it's like, "This isn't whole wheat," or whatever. Like, think about food.
True.
Low fat. No, it's just not as much fat as the really bad one. So, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the project that I was mentioning earlier is a Terra USD. And if you've been following, within just span a few days, investors panicked and they sold, and like all the value of this stable coin pretty much like tanked down. And so this bill in the earlier part where we were talking about like, oh, within $200, like no problem. Don't even tell us about it. Like let's just all go spend and utilize crypto. But on the other hand, like, well, if you're doing the business of stable coin, you better prove that you have the backup. So it's a bill that kind of tries to cover some of the problems that basically popped up in last like 2 3 years. So that's why you see like, oh, the bill is kind of covering like a wider spectrum of different things. And let me go to the next slide. The next one that I quoted from WSJ is under Loomis Gilbrand bill. Digital tokens that are sufficiently decentralized will be treated as commodities like gold or wheat. That's interesting. And initially, I had to look up what it means and to have like a securities and I forgot the other terms. There are like two other terms. And looking at the history behind what does it mean to basically govern the commodity in US, like oil and things like that. And what does it mean to govern the securities? And this is the part that I can't provide maybe the expert explanation of it. But basically, there is the SEC, which is obviously governing all things related to securities, including stocks that you buy. And they'll come in and audit the companies, make sure all these public companies are reporting what's being said and governing the rules around stock exchange, right? There are rules like, oh, if your net worth is below this, you can't do this type of trading. And as I got into a little bit of trading, I learned all these rules. And like, okay, there are a lot of regulations that are trying to protect the consumers, trying to make sure companies are reporting the truth. And if they're not, then they're basically gonna get in trouble. And I think we see e- through Elon Musk a lot of interesting stories, with the Elon Musk versus security exchange having issue with it might have been insider trading, or he's tweeting about something that's affecting the price of different things, and that's where you see SEC a lot of times. But what's interesting is that under this bill, this crypto is going to be treated as a commodity. So that's not under SEC. It is under the CFTC. And I think I lost
Hmm.
the what it
I don't know
stands
that
for.
acronym.
Yeah, CFTC. And it's a smaller, lesser known Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Commodity Futures Trading Commission. And if I quote, making cryptocurrency as commodities would theoretically open the door to much faster growth, and it would pave the way for Bitcoin ETF, which would allow less technical, sophisticated investors to jump into crypto. But critics worry that the CFTC doesn't have ability to combat the space fraud and bad actors. So remember, SEC is very good at cracking down on bad practices, fraudulent things, but the CFTC, the critics would say, well, they're not as good at governing those against fraudulent activities. But on the other hand, people are hopeful or positive about it because essentially it's like relaxing on the rules, like going a little bit easy. And when you read all these articles, you see the word light touch, like a light touch crypto bill. How can we encourage innovation by purposefully going a little bit loose? And I think it's very interesting movement or the approach that they chose, because if you think about innovation, if you look at the cities that's really strict about those things, and the other cities such as San Francisco where they're always doing something interesting like autonomously driving car, right? They'll just like start driving those things, and of course Uber gets in trouble because their software and the car cause a lot of trouble. So there is a lot of risk that's happening in a city where there's like a special you know permission, or maybe people break the rules and forget about the permission and just go and do it. But there's a city that has a characteristics of creating a lot of innovation, and I think this is bringing to the federal level, how can US as a country be a little bit more open to innovation with the crypto while adding some guardrail, right? Like they still want to put like some rules around, like, oh, like stable coin better be stable. But when it comes to like activities that involves crypto, I think they're trying to be lax, and choosing CFTC maybe not great for cracking down on a lot of things, but maybe great for innovation by creating a room for it. And Johnny, I know some are new to you, and I'm pretty new to this. All the commissions, who's involved, what's the history behind, and this person in this is particularly supportive or not supportive, and I have to read up on all these things, and really educational for me.
Yeah, this is super educational. It's interesting. I think at a surface it'd be like, oh, it's a draft bill. I mean, like all this stuff could be like kind of like over your head or like anyway, but it's cool to kind of see it broken down like this and actually going into some of those details. And yeah, I think there's a lot that I still need to learn to understand from that side of
Yeah,
things.
it's a lot. So I will put the link in description on this live stream where you guys can read articles from Time. I think they did the best job summarizing the the bill. So I'll link that, and you can read that. The last part from Time Again, the bill also asks for government watchdog to look into the risk and opportunity of allowing employees to invest in crypto with the 401k retirement accounts. I thought that was interesting. That with the guardrail of stable coins and the CFTC coming in, and you can buy things with the ETF, the collection of those business. I thought that's interesting that they're trying to get really close to our lives. Maybe our retirement is now going to be tied to the crypto, and that the future might not be too far. And lastly, I just want to show the maybe more critic side of reaction, because I think there are camp of people who are like really excited about this, right? Like, oh wow, this is going to allow for innovation. Let's do this. And then there is the other side, and she's a prominent crypto skeptic and a professor at American University Washington College of Law. And in tweet, she says, today, Luminous Gilbrand launched this bipartisan crypto bill. It's bipartisan in the sense that senators from different parties are giving crypto industry pretty much what it wants. So crypto industry, they want like, hey, give us freedom, let us do whatever we want. But it doesn't honor the regulatory goals that these typically prioritize. And this is talking about how power is not necessarily in the SEC, who is good at cracking down on things, but it's on the CFTS, TC, which is maybe less ready to combat the fraudulent and regulate. So yeah, this is the last part. But any overall reaction, Johnny, you have? Like you see both sides, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, it could be good
There's
for
always
us,
2
or
sides
yeah,
to it. Yeah,
yeah.
there's always 2 sides when it relates to this. It's like, it can be good in some ways, getting some standardization, getting some, like, overall kind of, regulation, but then at the same time, there is a reason we like decentralization and, like, the idea of, like, hands off, right?
Oh,
And
yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention about DAO, the decentralized autonomous organization. I forgot to get that part of it, so I can't exactly quote it. But basically, they are going to ensure that if you run a DAO, it needs to be, or they would encourage you to be registered as a organization in United States. And the rule is that if any member of the organization is U.S. citizen, then you are going to be, they call it like you have an exposure. Basically, you are also going to be liable under U.S. Regulation rules. And this is an interesting note where, like, when we talk about DAO, like, we imagine just like random anonymous people, with their crypto address as their identity, right? Come together and buy golf courses and, start a club and all these things, and you don't know who they are. But turns out you might actually have to register yourself, that organization under US. And it means maybe you're no longer anonymous because you got to use your real name. You got to use your real social security number, right? To register.
oh,
And
interesting.
and they say if you do not do that, I think you are going to be personally liable for taxation events and things like that. Whereas if you register, I think you can register as, let's say, non-profit organization. We're just trying to buy a golf course and sell membership to the golf course. That I thought was very interesting ramification. I think we've been talking about this identity, right? When we talked about our avatar in Metaverse, do we need to be verified to show that, hey, we're actually older than what we might present ourselves? Like, we're not actually another kid talking to a kid. Like, I'm actually an adult that may have some intent, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So this brings very interesting ramification to the entire DAO as way of running your organization. And yes, you can still be decentralized, but maybe you are not anonymous anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
And as
Yeah.
the bill gets finalized, I think we will come back to it and really
Yeah.
go deep into it, because I think at this point, like, yeah, there's framework and like maybe like 70%, 80% we have good idea, but I'm pretty sure people are going to react and they'll update the bill and clarify more things.
Cool. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, I think there'll be more coming from that.
Cool. Well, I think that's it for my segment. And Johnny, you're
Yeah,
ready to take over on.
I am. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about a big thing happening this week with Apple. If you followed it all, there was an event on Monday for WWDC, and quite a few things were announced during WWDC, and we can talk about a few of those at a high level. But there was a lot, I guess, as it relates to the metaverse and XR and things like that. There were a lot of rumors that there was going to potentially be an announcement for an MR headset or lots of augmented reality updates. Like, hey, maybe they'll launch it. Maybe they'll talk about Reality OS. There was a lot of articles written around this. Well, turns out they didn't really mention augmented reality almost at all. Actually, if they did mention things, they were kind of unrelated and it wasn't direct calls to it. So what we got instead, which is fine, there's a lot of really cool updates here, was a MacBook Air, iOS 16 updates. I'm excited about a few things there. Mac OS Ventura, iPad OS 16, Watch OS 9, and the MacBook Pro 13. And as much as I know we could probably dive into each of these categories, I won't do that. Not for this particular show. But lots of cool things there. But again, the question was, I think in people's mind, well, what about AR? What about the MR headset? What happened there? And so there's been a few articles that have come out. And also, I think as we were going live stream, Elisha, I don't know if you remember, I kept pointing out, that feature will be really powerful for AR eventually, and like we kept kind of pointing out features that we would see. And I actually jotted those down and I'm going to talk a little bit about those. Um, so very interesting things there. So this is an article that I saw today that was like Apple's AR headset was hiding in plain sight at WWDC 2020. This is one of those articles. This is from inputmag.com. There's another one from Computer World that says Apple isn't saying too much about like that talks about this one. Apple isn't saying too much, but AR is everywhere at WWDC. So like there are some people saying like, oh, they still kind of indirectly talked about it. So as I've been following some of the different releases of videos and developer videos, I've actually seen quite a lot that's been talked about, and I want to talk about a few of those. So there was a call to AR actually on the event page. So right when they actually promoted the event, if you pulled it up on your phone, Elisha, this is actually me at my desk.
Oh,
You can see the little video there. But if you went onto the event page and then tapped on the emojis that were there on the screen, they looked a little bit different. They looked closer to this screen, right? You clicked on those emojis, it actually launched this
oh
trading
wow.
card kind of package that opens up on your desk, and then you kind of open them and they're really cryptic. Like, okay, what do these have to do with it? And this is all prior to the event, right? Another reason why I think there was a lot of hype around this. Like, hey, what's going to go on with this? So that's one thing that we saw. Right after they got done with the event, the same day, they talked about some other updates that were coming with AR Kit, right? So again, not announced on the keynote, but then they subtly mentioned this thing. This is one called Room Plan, and it's a room plan is part of AR Kit, Swift. It's part of their API, and you can see a video of what's going on. I actually posted a TikTok video on this um, to talk about how easy it is to go scan. And there's a whole
Wow.
bunch on this video. Any reactions from seeing this?
That's cool. Basically, I could imagine once I scan it, I assume there's some another software that it's part of where I can start to put like a furnitures and like the color of the wall, and
Yeah.
that would be cool because I know Johnny, you have created like your room planning using a software, but that wasn't based on scanning your room, right? That was just you
No.
measuring everything.
I looked at my floor plans. I tried to measure it all, the room that I'm currently in now, thinking about how I was going to position things. And it was a big pain to do that. So this is an API available to developers. So I'm imagining that we're going to see a lot of people that do a lot of the scanning, like SLAM based scanning, are going to start to leverage this in their apps. But it comes with things that you're seeing on the screen here, right? It puts a line around things. On the right hand side of this, you see all of the different objects that it can actually recognize. So it can recognize a fireplace and a sofa and a
Um,
toilet, a fridge. And I've actually played with this slightly and actually got to go see how it scans things and recognize things. And they're saying that the number of objects it recognizes is going to continue to go up. So cool. It's an API thing. Great. What does that have to do with like the metaverse or the AR VR? Well, if you're a Quest 2 user and you think about scanning, setting up your environment that you're about to play your VR headset, currently the way you do that is you point to the ground and you start to draw around your
Mm-hmm.
room, right? And you're like, this is the area, this is my play area, right? Now the room boundary. There are some updates to that we've been seeing developers have gotten access where they're doing something very similar to Apple. So Meta's doing a version of this with their headset where it's starting to scan the room and then say, okay, let's just avoid your desk or avoid the plants or avoid this, and it's starting to do some of that. And so Apple's doing kind of their own version. So I would imagine that when their mixed reality headset comes out, this technology will absolutely be leveraged for setting up your play area or setting up your home environment. Imagine instead of having a landing screen where it just shows all of the apps that you can play in your VR headset, it actually was a scanned digital clone of your room or your office or your house. And you can go and actually open up your fridge or open up your microwave and actually do all of that in an immersive virtual experience. So it's opening up lots of possibilities. If you have any thoughts on how room plan might actually be able to be leveraged for the
I
metaverse.
wanna scan the room furnitures, and in a VR, I wanna rearrange it
Yeah.
because I'm thinking about rearranging around my desk, but it's like I have to physically think about it, right? And then like move, and
Yep.
is it gonna fit? Like I don't know if
Yep.
it's gonna fit and things like
Yep.
that.
So
That'd be cool.
if you download iOS 16 beta right now, you can actually play with this. So what again, this they didn't talk about this like, hey, this is a core thing that we're going to use for our new reality OS or for our new MR headset. They just kind of put this out there and like, "Oh, there's a little update here. Come play with it." And it actually had a lot of hype. This is the type of thing I'm talking about that is related to AR.
That's cool.
This is another thing I think we can kind of chat through. But as we were seeing the presentations, Elisha, I wrote these 6 things down. I wrote voice dictation, live text, visual lookup, AR maps, share play, Apple Pay. These are 6 things that I think are directly going to be leveraged and going to be um, important for the upcoming reality OS or mixed reality headset that Apple's coming out with. So, voice dictation, being able to do, I don't know if you remember this in the demo, they say, oh, not only can you do your voice, you can also do text and you can go back and forth simultaneously. Like you can be typing and then use your voice and say the name of the place, keep typing, use your voice. So this kind of combo of dictation being evolved and improved definitely applies to something like a VR or AR headset, being
Mm.
able to use your voice to dictate, being able to type to see where your fingers are. But that becomes a really important distinction of being able to switch between the two of those quickly. We saw a whole bunch about Apple Maps. If you think about the last 3 years of Apple Maps, I don't know about you, Elisha, and I think we've talked about this before, but when Apple Maps first came out, I was super disappointed. And I've
Mm.
never since used Apple Maps. I use Google Maps or I use
Mm.
Waze or I use all these other apps that
Yeah,
aren't
yeah.
Apple Maps because I was super disappointed. Um, a lot of people are saying that it's been drastically improved. The step-by-step navigation's been improved. But what we visually have seen is that the whole world basically is now 3D. Like, I mean, at least a good
Yeah,
chunk of
it's
the
like a
world is now
digital
3D.
twin, right? They almost pretty much have a digital twin that
They almost have a digital
that
twin that's
yeah,
completely in, and you can imagine how that might translate to something like VR, right? Where you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
the whole world is this digital world, and then if you add the room plan thing that we just saw, right? Like, oh, now you can go into environments and you can see things, and you might have a digital presence for your business or for your house or whatever. So lots of interesting updates there from a AR perspective, or as you think about AR for Apple Maps and the improvements to their 3D imagery. Um, quickly on some of the others, they talked about live text. So you can, if you haven't done this already in iOS 15, if you take a photo with something with text, you can highlight the image, copy paste the text. I use this almost daily, actually. I was surprised how much I use it. Well, they added video and they added translations. So, meaning in a video, as I'm moving around my camera, I can get live video replacements. Think about Google Translate's video version, right?
Mhm.
Apple has a version of that now. And they also do text within video. So if I'm moving around and I pause the video, I can then go and highlight the screen. Or if I'm watching like one of these WWDC developer videos, I can copy the code. And that can be applicable again as you're in VR. You can say, hey, copy that, bring that in, or hey, dictate that, or whatever. And so the fact that you can now do image to text, right, or text to speech, is as a really practical kind of application for AR, VR, kind of mixed reality. Um, they do things like visual lookup is very similar. So we were talking about this, the fact that I can take a picture of it. They showed a bulldog, take a photo of it at the beach, and then they clicked and held it, and then they copied the bulldog, and it completely removed the background, and you were able to paste it. There's going to be a lot, I think, applicable there as it relates to using machine learning to remove the background on things and how that might actually be brought in or be translated into your environment. Um, Share play, I think, is going to be a huge backbone and important uh, feature within the Apple ecosystem for their mixed reality headset. So they had more updates and API updates, right? And as I started to dig, there's a lot more that happens there. So they've already had third party access, but now they're making that even more and more seamless. So I think about my experience of putting on my Quest in my house, Elisha, and I have friends over and I'm like, hey, let's play Beat Saber. And I try to put it on my screen or I try to put it on my phone and how bad that experience is.
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, whatever I'm playing doesn't show up or is too choppy or just doesn't work whatsoever, right?
Yeah, or like when you try to join the world together to just have fun, and we just want the private session, right? We don't need anybody else in the world. Like we just want to link
Yeah,
directly and just
that's
play a game or something.
so exactly. So that it's like when you're immersed, how do you go and share and have your friends come in? But separate, when you have people in the real world and you're in the VR world, how do I then showcase what I'm viewing to people with their phones? And share play, now that it's built into iMessages, it's built into FaceTime. That's the big update. It's gonna be in the MR headset too, and we're gonna see that the ability to share your gameplay is going to be available. Lastly, Apple Pay. This is a stretch, Elisha, but Apple Pay, the fact that you can tap your phones together and things like that, I would imagine that there's going to be some interaction within Reality OS that allows you to pay for things. Maybe it's NFTs, maybe it's not, maybe it's digital goods, maybe it's one another, but being able to transfer money through something like a digital kind of wallet like Apple Pay. And so we'll see more and more kind of come with that. But these are the kind of the 6 things that jumped out to me, Elisha, from a potential call outs to AR from WWDC that were not directly called out as augmented reality or future updates for MR, but things that I think are powerful features that are going to be big enabling features for mixed reality and
Yeah,
Apple.
I really like that prediction. Hopefully that will be true like next year, right? Yeah,
Yes, the rumor is that it's been delayed and that we're going to get a January 2023 announcement and a Q2 release. That's according to people that make those big claims and have a lot of accuracy to their leaks. So we'll see if that's the case. I was hoping we'd get it in 2022. We might get it January 2023. But and
cool.
with that, let's jump over to the next part of this, which I think is
Question of the
question of
day.
the day.
And we don't know the question until it shows up in the screen. We'll see. Okay. So the question is, what do you consider to be most creative NFT drop so far? Ooh, this might be
Ooh.
Johnny's question because I'm more following like a
Ooh.
news of like the cool drop of NBA Top Shots and some really popular mainstream one that I'm aware of, but not really if it's like, some cool thing happening here and the community is still small but growing. So Johnny, maybe I'll
Yeah.
let you take this one over.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely have an opinion on this one. Um, there's a lot of really cool things. I mean, we've covered some of these. I think Gary Vee is doing some really innovative
Mhm.
things as it relates to like creative
Yep.
uses of NFTs, right? A
Mm.
physical restaurant that you can get access to joining to this club, Fly Fish Club, I think is what it's called, through an NFT. There's things like that. We can talk about gaming. We can talk better metaverse stuff. But my favorite right now, Elisha, and the one I think is the most creative is something called FCF, fan controlled football. It's a
Hmm.
sports thing, but bear with me. This is why it's super innovative. So FCF again stands for fan controlled football. You can go to I think it's fcf.io. You can see it. It's essentially pro football. Like I watch the NFL, I watch basketball, but it's pro football reimagined for the kind of modern digital world, I would say, right? It's essentially they have a really like innovative stadium where games are played in this like studio arena and it's streamed right now, not on live TV, it's streamed to Twitch. And the entire game is controlled. The real game is controlled by NFT owners. The players, the NFT owners call the plays to
Hmm.
to the football game. This is something I was like predicting with like hey, basketball, eventually you're going to be able to control the views. You're going to be able to control like what angle you watch the games. Maybe you're on the 3-point line, or maybe you're on the. This is taking that a step further. This is saying, oh, if you're an owner, not only do you get to like name the team or pick the players that start, you get to play, you get to pick the plays. So they have real sports, real players, real coaches, real league. They have ex NFL players like T.O. from the Dallas Cowboys, Terrell
Wow.
Owens. You have people like Johnny Manziel, who was a quarterback in the NFL, no longer playing in the NFL. So some of these players that are still playing and making money now through this new digital NFT based kind of project. And they had their
Wow.
first season last year. I think it was February, March 2021. And it's said to be like the fastest growing live sports channel on Twitch. I think they had something like 10 million views. Isn't that crazy? 10 million views. I think that 10
Wow.
games, so about a million views per game on Twitch, the top sports app game, like on the Apple Store, things like that. So, what's unique about it too is that they take away all like the boring parts of football that sometimes people don't like. So instead of 11 against 11 and this 100-yard football field and things like that, it's 7 players on each side. It's a 50-yard field. There's no coin toss. They do rock paper scissors. There's no kicking or special teams. The games last 1 hour. Like all the players are called, all the plays are called, and the plays are run within 30 seconds. So it's like so fast. You're watching a full game in an hour. And they've raised a ton of investing. I actually know this because I've been following it. I actually own
Wow.
one of their ballers or whatever, but it's like $3 million of angel investment, $12 million of seed funds, $40 million of Series A in January this year. So the way it works basically is you join the league and you get locked into one team, and it's owned by players you might know like Marshawn Lynch, and like there's big like names in these, right? They're the coaches, they're like the owners of these teams. So only a few teams. And then you get points if you're an NFT holder, you get points on engagement, right? We talk about like Discord, and like you get points and you might unlock things. Well, this one gives you fan IQ, and the more votes and stuff, the higher your engagement and fan IQ is, the more votes you get. That then lets you kind of control the game. So I can go off on this in a future time, Elisha. I think there's a lot of cool things about it,
That
but I
sounded
think it's
pretty
one of the
cool
most
already. Yeah.
innovative. Yeah, it's probably one of the most innovative NFT projects that I've seen that I'm closely watching, and I'm hoping to
Wow.
participate pretty actively into the future.
Wow. Cool. Well, for more content like this, you guys should follow our social media. So especially if you're interested in, what Johnny described, I'm pretty sure Johnny has a lot of tweets and his TikTok content around, those things he just explained. And I'm also on TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn. And you can also follow us both on LinkedIn, and we have Fresh Laughs page where we will post future live shows. And we do this every week, noon,
Yep.
Wednesday on PST. So please subscribe to our YouTube, subscribe to our LinkedIn for future notifications. And we'd like to see you next week again.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.